Farmers today are facing rising costs, volatile markets, and extreme weather. The Better Way to Farm podcast digs into strategies to help you take control of farm inputs and maximize profit so your farm can thrive for generations. Remember to take advantage of our free resources at abetterwaytofarm.com. Now, from America's Heartland, here's your host.
Before we dive into today's episode, I've got some exciting news. We've had several farmers reach out last minute and asking if there's any way they can still get into the agronomy meeting in Minot. So we made a few calls and the hotel has agreed to let us open on-site registration. That means if you're farming small grains or oilseeds and you want to learn how to lower your cost of production, build better fertility plans, and fix issues like low protein in wheat, you can still join us. Text Minot to 641-919-5570 to join us on July 10th. All right, let's jump into today's episode. What if the reason that you're not hitting your yield goals has nothing to do with nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium? But what if it's something as simple as a few ounces of boron? Hey, Rod here at A Better Way to Farm, where we increase yields and improve profits. And guys, I'm excited about today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Stick with us as we uncover how this often overlooked micronutrient could be the missing link between average yields and your best yield yet. Guys, here's the deal. You would not want to skip pollination, right? But that's exactly what we do when boron is missing. In this episode, we're going to take a look and break down how a small application of boron can unlock better yields, unlock better quality, and give you a tremendous ROI. Let's spend a few minutes talking about what boron does, first of all. We know that it has a tremendous role in cell walls. We know that it has a lot to do with the movement of sugar. We know that it has a lot to do with nitrogen fixation. Other research has indicated, and it seems to be very well accepted, that when we have adequate boron, we get better water utilization. In other words, we don't have as much luxury consumption of water. So in those time frames when it gets hot or it gets dry or we are just hurting for water, having adequate boron helps to sustain us through that time. And having inadequate boron punishes us, and we double down on our losses and how difficult we make life for ourselves. This is a product, guys, that we use in small amounts. It's not going to be a huge quantity. This isn't hundreds of pounds. This is ounces per acre. We know that boron is very critical for reproductive development. In other words, pollination. So it's going to make silk in that corn plant. It's going to make pollen in that corn plant. We're going to make those tassels have more pollen to put down. We know that it's going to help with pod or seed set, and we know that it helps us with flower retention. So if we want to hang on to more blooms in them soybeans, having adequate boron is key. A lot of times it's overlooked in soybeans. Oftentimes it's overlooked, period. And part of the reason for that is you don't see boron screamed for by the plant like you do other things. I got some pictures in here yesterday. Someone had sent me, and they had a tremendous stereotypical potassium deficiency. The yellow edges burnt all the way around those leaves. They were hurting for potassium. And the fact of the matter is, some of those deficiencies just yell at you. You know, that bright yellow in the top with when we're short on sulfur, that intervenal striping when we're hurting for manganese at the top of the plant, the intervenal striping at the bottom when we are hurting for magnesium. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of times boron doesn't show up as deficient until it's too late. And we may never see symptoms, so to speak. We just see lost yield. We see a lack of pollination. So what does it look like typically? Well, it looks like poor pollination. Maybe those zipper ears, the ones that, you know, they didn't pollinate all the way around and you got part of that plant that there's nothing on the cob. Maybe it looks like blank tips, that it tipped back way too much, way more than it was supposed to, because we either didn't make enough silk or we didn't make enough pollen. Maybe it looks like we abort way too many of our flowers. And when we start dropping off pods and we start dropping off flowers, that is bad. In wheat, what's it going to look like? It's going to look like white heads. It's going to look like sterility. It's going to look like blank grain, all leading to tremendous crop loss. In cotton, what happens there? And I'm going to read something here in a little bit on cotton. I'm not a cotton expert, guys. I'm the first to tell you that. You know, we don't shoot from the hip, but we've done some research here. But in cotton, you start looking at abortion of the squares, the bolls. You see that coon tailing? that happens in that plant. And sometimes you get that hard lock. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. In alfalfa, you get the stunted tops. You get the reduced regrowth. And guys, here's a big one. You get a harder winter kill. Guys, have an adequate boron. There's a lot of reasons to apply adequate boron, but in alfalfa, if you want that crop to go through the winter, don't be deficient in boron. And we don't want to wait for any symptoms to show up. This is one of those that by the time the symptoms are there, massive loss has already taken place. We have been hurt and hurt bad. It has dug into our pocketbook in ways we can't even fathom. And so it's really important that we don't wait on those symptoms to come and see us, that we got to find it. Who really needs to pay attention to this? I'm going to say everyone. Why? Because 90 to 95% of all the soil tests we look at, and we look at thousands, 90 to 95% of those tests are boron deficient. People who particularly want to start looking quick, do you have sandy or low organic matter soils? Do you have high pH soils? Did you just recently lime? Why is that? Because as we raise the pH, the boron availability drops. If you have high pH soils naturally, your boron availability isn't as good. And guys, this is really critical. I shared a story with someone the other day. We had some friends down in central Missouri. It's an interesting world that we live in. And this individual was living at that point in time, this has been 15 years ago, but the county average that they had for soybeans was like 20 or 22 bushel an acre. That was their county average. And we went in and they started cutting some 60 bushel soybeans, but the soybeans went down. They fell over. And the local person came to my client and said, look at that. He don't even know how to make your soybeans stand up. He can't even get them to stand. Yes, we created a problem. We created a problem that his soybeans went down. Guys, here's the deal. 20 bushel soybeans are pretty easy to keep standing. 60 bushel soybeans have a lot more weight on the plant. Same thing here. If you're content to get by at 160 bushel corn, boron's probably not for you. It may be. I see guys that can't get to 100. We get out into the dry land in Kansas, and one of their limiting factors is boron. And how do they better utilize their water? Put on the right amount of boron. But the fact of the matter is, guys, if we're going to push these yields, if we're going to get to yields we've never got before, we're going to have to do things we've never done before. And that's where the boron comes in. One of the first stories that we had when we got started, I had a grower up in central Iowa. I'll never forget. He just didn't try anything but 2 pints of boron. He didn't soil test. He didn't tissue test. I hate all of that. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, putting on that 2 pints of boron got him 12 bushels to the acre. Guys, here's the deal. How do we put it on? You use boron like you vote in Chicago, early and often. Why do I say that? Well, the fact of the matter is, our experience would indicate multiple applications are way better because it's negatively charged and it will run away. Our work that we have done testing knows that in multiple applications, never more than 3 pints at a time. And we have people who need 1 pint and we have people who need 10 pints. And we base it on the soil test, but we put it on in multiple applications. We like some early, a little bit. And then as we go through, and the biggest dose, probably 3 pints if we need that much, at wide dropping or side dress. When we start looking at foliar feeding, when's the best time to do that? Well, obviously, we would like to be right in front of the tassel, right in front of the silk. We want to be in front of that first flower on the cotton. We want to be in front of the boot stage for wheat. Guys, here's the plan. I want to share this with you. There are 0 excuses or reasons to ever put boron in the seed trench. We got a very sad call last week from a grower. He had a neighbor who had someone convince him that our grower was using starter and he was using boron, but he wasn't using starter and boron together. And the neighbor went to someone else and they convinced him to apply boron in the seed trench with the starter on his soybeans. And he is replanting several hundred acres. Guys, boron should never be seed applied. If there's enough boron in the mix to make it worthwhile, there's enough boron in the mix to smoke your germ. And if there's not enough in there to smoke your germ, you're not getting enough boron to make a difference. And so we never put it in the trench. What are the proper rates? I did a bunch of research on this. Karen did some research on it. She found different things, and it would say things like 1 to 2 pounds to the acre or 1.5 pounds foliar. Guys, no. The proper rate is to soil test and put on whatever it says and then come back and fine tune it with a tissue test. We really, really, really want to push that. In regards to you cotton guys, I just want to read this verbatim because I'm not a cotton expert. We're learning, we're working, but this is important for you guys to know. Boron deficiency in cotton is a well-known issue on certain soils. Symptoms usually appear at the top of the plant since boron is not mobile. The growing point may die, causing a rosetted or bushy appearance as the lateral branches proliferate. Young cotton leaves may be smaller, misshapen, or yellowish green, and the flower buds, or the squares, can turn chlorotic and abort. A classic sign is coontailing, or those dark concentric rings on the petioles of the young leaves. In advanced cases, many fruiting forms, in other words, squares and young bolls, will dry up and shed from the plant. Bolls that do develop may be deformed or flat-sided or curved, sometimes called hook-billed bolls, and can have an internal dark brown discoloration in the boll walls or the petioles. Impact, boron deficiency in cotton is going to hit your reproductive success. Flowers and bolls abort, resulting in reduced boll count and yield. And in severe cases, nearly all the blooms shed and the plant becomes just vegetative. Fiber development will also suffer with those bolls failing to open or hard lock, in other words, if the boron is extremely low. Guys, this is a big deal, and it's easy to test for. It's part of the fundamental tissue test that we run and the fundamental soil test. And we would have you soil test and apply some early and apply some through the growing season, because this is something we don't want. It is not uncommon in real world examples to see 20 bushel of corn, 3/4 of a ton of alfalfa, or 15% cotton lint to be picked up in trials because we used boron. It's going to cost you somewhere typically between $3 and $12 an acre, but the upside can be $50, $60, $80, $100. And guys, if boron is your limiting factor, it is the cheapest way to get a yield bump, but only apply it when it makes sense. There's a line that I ran across here reading, and it said, "This is not a spray and pray product." And I'm going to tell you there aren't any of those. I don't want to use any micronutrient under the spray and pray method. So let's make sure we're getting to it. Guys, don't guess. Don't just take a stab at it. Don't throw darts at the board. Do the tissue test, do the soil test, and adjust. So here's the deal. If you need help figuring out how to work boron into your plan, go to abetterwaytofarm.com/get-answers. abetterwaytofarm.com/get-answers. And we will get you taken care of. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you very, very much, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Oh, by the way, we do have a Fundamentals of Agronomy coming up in central Iowa by Des Moines, the 17th and 18th of July, and we would love to meet you there. Before you go, if today's episode got you thinking about how to farm more profitably, then don't miss your chance to join us in Minot, North Dakota, July the 10th. If you're growing small grains or oilseeds and you're ready to stop guessing and start dialing your fertility plan in, this is your shot. Text Minot to 641-919-5570 and we'll send you the details. We'll be there July the 10th, and we'd love to see you there too. Until next time. Guys, thanks a lot. We really do hope you're having a better day.